Hey, welcome back to Robinson Actual. If you're watching this video, you're probably looking to get into an AR-15 and you're not looking to just pick up another hobby. You're not looking for just a range toy. You're not into hunting. You're trying to get set up for a very specific purpose. Well, if you're just now getting into it and you try doing research on your own, you'll find that it's kind of hard to figure out exactly what an AR-15 really is. There are so many different variations of the AR-15 platform on the market now, it's easy to kind of get lost in the weeds and not even know where to start. So I'm going to do my best to show you what's out there, and I'll show you exactly what I personally like, and then you can kind of do some research based off of that and go from there. Technically, everything on the wall behind me is an AR, but what exactly does that mean and what separates them from each other? So first we'll start off with what I call the AR-15 clone category. This looks like an AR-15. It's actually stamped M4 carbine Colt. Everything about it looks and feels like an AR-15. It's got a few interchangeable parts with AR-15s. However, it is a 22 caliber. So this is really just a Walther 22 LR semi-auto that's been shaped to look like an M4 and stamped to say Colt M4 carbine. So this is not what you're after. You might see it listed, think, holy crap, that's a really good deal, and Colt's a good brand, and then go to pick it up from Arms List or whatever catalog store you're shopping at and realized, oh crud, it's more of a plinker. So obviously this isn't what we're after, but like I said, it's a variation of an AR-15, so it's just an example of what's out there. Next up, we've got what's called an AR-9. This is an AR-15 platform. It shares a lot of parts with an AR-15, but it's a dedicated 9mm pistol caliber carbine. This specific one is an Angstadt Arms UDP-9. It's a really cool looking pistol caliber carbine, but it is a range toy. And most pistol caliber carbines are going to be referred to as range toys on this channel. So let's move on to our first mil-spec direct impingement AR-15. This right here is a Geissele Super Duty. It's got a low power variable optic from Geissele, and then up top I've got a Trijicon RMR piggybacked. And then I've got an IR device on the end. You really don't need to worry about that until you get into night vision. But what makes this a mil-spec direct impingement AR really is the gas system is what it usually comes down to. When you pull the bolt carrier out of a standard AR-15, it's going to look like this. We've got the gas key up top, and what that does is when a round goes off in the barrel and it sends gas behind the bullet, it goes up into the gas block, into the gas tube, sends it back, and hits the gas key. And that is what cycles the rifle. And I'll show you how different variations look compared to a standard mil-spec bolt carrier. Now, if you go looking up Geissele Super Duties, you're gonna think this is like a $5,000 rifle here. But the truth is they sell blim parts, and I'm gonna scratch up all my rifles anyway. So I love me some blim parts. Count Blimula sponsored this rifle. We've got a blim upper, a blim lower, a blim rail. The trigger might even be blim. I don't know. I can't keep up. I'm always looking for blim sales. But the point is, you can actually build yourself a high quality rifle without paying sticker price. And a lot of guys put more money into their arrow precision than I've got into this Geissele. I got the optic secondhand from Tac Swap. Same with the optic mount. It is a rifle worth owning. I could confidently take it into any scenario I might find myself in and never have to question if it's going to perform as it's built to. Now, this rifle specifically is not set up to defend my home. The only thing I've done with it is kill one fox and one possum that got into my chicken coop. I got them from the kitchen window through night vision with a suppressor. That right there is pretty much exactly what this thing is for. It's pretty much set up to be an out to 200 yard varmint gun for me personally. Now, some key points about this build that you don't have to have a whole Geissele rifle to take advantage of. The Geissele SS8E trigger, it's an excellent trigger. Same with their lower parts kit. You can get an ambidextrous selector and a maritime extended bolt catch and put it into any standard mil-spec AR-15. Another advantage of a mil-spec AR is that most of it is going to not be proprietary. We're talking about things in the receivers, really. So even though I never have to worry about this, if this Ultra Duty bolt carrier ever went bad on me, I could swap it out with any run-of-the-mill mil-spec AR-15 bolt carrier and be back in action. So let's see what else is out there. So next up, we've got what's called a short stroke piston AR-15. This right here is an LWRC M6A2 upper on a Geissele lower. Now this is the AR-15 I've owned the longest. I've got at least 5,000 rounds through it. I really love it. It never fails me and never will fail me. LWRC is probably one of the most reliable brands available out there on the market at all. Now they do have more modernized rifles nowadays without the quad rail, full length rail, all the stuff that people really want. You'll notice this has kind of a GWAT vibe to it, but that's one of the reasons I like it, honestly. Now I'm gonna show you the guts and what exactly is different between a direct impingement mil-spec AR and a short stroke piston AR. So that right there is a short stroke piston AR-15 bolt carrier group. This is what the LWRC bolt carriers look like. Now if we compare it to a standard mil-spec AR-15 bolt carrier, you'll see the main difference is right up top there, the gas key. And like I said, the main differences between AR-15 variants are really just the gas systems. So instead of the LWRC relying on the gas to come back and cycle the bolt, that's actually doing the main downside of the AR platform, which is what we say is shitting where it eats, right? So it's sending gas right above your mag well when it's doing that. And so you'll notice if you stop halfway through a mag and check, your rounds will be just filthy, you know? So the LWRC platform basically just puts a piston instead of a gas tube along the top of the barrel. So that gas is actuating a spring-loaded piston that is actually cycling the bolt carrier group. It's got a 16-inch barrel. It's got a light. I could definitely upgrade the light. It's got a reliable optic. Got a riser to accommodate for night vision because that's what I'm going to be using at night at my house. And then it's got a just simple pressure pad to activate the light. I went with the LaRue trigger and I really like it. Super comparable to the Geissele SS8EX. So the way this carbine is set up is to get the maximum velocity I can get out of the 5.56 round while still keeping it a manageable length. That's why most of them come at 16 inches. Now if I'm planning on putting a high volume down range, this is probably the rifle I'm going to pick up. I've had a FRT in it, I've had a binary trigger just to play with them and see how they perform. Now the main differences you'll feel from the short stroke piston versus a gas rifle is when you're doing heavy rates of fire, high rates of fire, and when you're suppressed. Basically, when you put a suppressor on it, you've got gas issues. It's going to be real gassy normally. But the LWRC technology mitigates that by replacing the gas tube with a piston and putting most of the gas issues out the end. So we're going to put this aside and take a look at a different type of bolt carrier group and gas system in the AR-15 platform. For our next style of AR-15 platform, we've got the primary weapon system long stroke piston upper on top of a Noveske Gen 3 lower that I've had milled to accept a ambidextrous bolt catch. Now this thing is an awesome flat shooter. I can take it out to 200-300 yards confidently. So before I get into what all advantages it provides and disadvantages, I'll just go ahead and show you how different it looks compared to the other two. You can see you've got to take the whole charging handle out and separate it, but I'll just hold it all together there for you. So this is the primary weapon system's proprietary long stroke piston system. And so what they've done is, instead of having the piston right up in the rail like the LWRCs, they've got it connected all the way back to the gas key. So this thing is cycling more like an AK-47. Now the advantage here is that it shoots super flat. The recoil is unlike any other, and then especially when you put a suppressor on the end. It's got the adjustable gas block from the factory, and you can really tune this thing to just be super great for follow-up shots out to 100, 200 yards, and without it bouncing as much. Now there is more weight to it because of that. So what I do to mitigate that, if I run one of my direct impingement rifles with this Gemtech shield, and then I put a Verse 36 3D printed titanium suppressor on this one, they'll weigh the exact same. So if you're planning on running a short suppressed rifle, keep in mind you can get a super lightweight can to make up for the extra hardware you've got in this piston system. So now that we've got a visual idea on the three main kind of gas systems in the AR15 platform these days, let's take a look at how I've got a couple of mine set up and what their purpose is for. So this right here is going to be the setup that I'm going to recommend if you're wanting to set up an AR15 for home defense. If you're going to use an AR for home defense, you need a suppressor, and it's not about stealth. It's not about anything like that. It's safety. Because if you're going to let off a 5.56 indoors in a house, everyone's going to be deaf. And if there's a home intruder, your wife needs to be able to call out, "Honey, are you okay?" and hear your response. Or you need to be able to call out, "Babe, I'm fine, babe, I'm fine." Because if she just hears a couple of loud explosions, you know, she doesn't know what an AR sounds like versus a 12 gauge versus a 9mm indoors. It's just loud. And if she goes around that corner and she just sees you, a shadowy figure, she might think you're the intruder. So it's a threat to operational security in the home to be letting off super loud SBRs and, you know, AR pistols. So ideally for home defense, what I like is going to be between 10.5 inches and 12.5 inches with a suppressor. You don't have to get 2 tack stamps if you just run a brace on it, and you can move your suppressor around to different rifles too. So that's a plus. So what I've got here is a super simple setup. I've got a Surefire Mini Scout Turbo. This thing's got 96,000 candela. I can see anything on my entire property any time of night. So doesn't matter how foggy it is, that thing is sending a beam. Up top, I've got the Aimpoint Comp M5S. This is going to be the most reliable red dot on the market. I'll debate people about it. It's a great red dot. Super low profile. It's not going to be taking up any of my peripherals. I can get a solid sight picture, and I'm not going to have a giant window and, you know, with a bunch of visual blockers all the way around it. This just keeps it nice and tight. And it's got an extremely long battery life. I just leave it on at home and then swap out the battery every birthday. So what I've done here is taken a Silencer Co. billet upper and lower receiver set, and I've put a Geissele SSAE trigger in them. Got a forward controls dimpled bolt carrier group with the N3 extractor. So Forward Controls is going to be an excellent brand for little knickknacks, little parts and pieces. If you can pick up, you know, selector switch, even the mag releases they make, the bolt carriers, they're always good to go. It's one of those brands that you do not have to question. They're good to go. So beyond the receiver set, I've got a BCM rail and a BCM barrel. They're super lightweight, they're super reliable. I've got maybe 3,000 rounds through this one, and I've got no complaints. I mean, the thing's grouping just fine. And even when it gets hot, it's still pretty tight. And even with a suppressor completely steaming and smoking everywhere, the thing just runs. And Silencer Co., they're an excellent top-of-the-line manufacturer. This is an ambidextrous billet set. So I've got the ambi bolt catch that I can actuate from both sides of the rifle. So that's just one little feature that I really like. The built-in QD mounts are great. When you've got a billet receiver versus a forged receiver, billet receivers are just all milled out of one block of aluminum. Couple other details, I've got the Dai-Frico Kung Fu grip. It's a little bit Mall Ninja, it's a little bit tactard, but hear me out. It's the closest grip angle to a Milwaukee Impact. So for the last 10 years, that's what I've been using. And when I start going at real hard angles with this wrist, I get a little tingling on the back of my wrist here. Probably nerve damage, but I put this real steep Dai-Frico Kung Fu grip on here. And when I show up to a class, we're doing vehicle training and I'm going high compressed over the shoulder, you know, those are the instances where I'll get that little buzz down my wrist. But when I've got this grip on, I don't get it. And it's just been super helpful. That's a personal thing. I like the B5 grips just as well. But specifically if I'm showing up to a class or if I'm going around tight corners or maneuvering around barrels or clearing my house, I like having this Kung Fu grip. And then up front, I've just got a little hand stop. It's not really meant to hold on to. It just kind of lets me know where I'm at on the rail. When you're training with a bunch of different size rifles, you know, you can grab your can on accident and, you know, that shit's hot. But this is just a super simple setup. It's great for home defense. You've got great white light. You've got a solid red dot that you're not gonna pick up and it's gonna be dead. You know, it can get banged around, it's gonna hold zero. You can actually train with this thing and then take it home and defend your home with it. And that's the thing is, you know, you wanna train with the machine that you plan on fighting with at the end of the day. So this is my go-to. And then if I'm running, you know, a lot of longer range, like on a 2-gun match, I'll run that piston PWS, which is basically the exact same setup, just with a piston. So those two are really gonna be a couple of my favorites. And then I'll show you a couple others that are built with a special purpose. So this right here is the Primary Weapon Systems 16-inch Mark 116 Mod 2. And this thing is set up for a very specific purpose, which is to watch my homestead, just like that Geisley is set up. Now there's only a couple differences between this one and the Geisley, one being the barrel length. I've got a full 16 inches on this one. And the other being that the red dot, the micro red dot that goes with the LPVO, instead of being mounted up top, I've got it at a 45-degree angle on the side here. So this thing is also going to be the long stroke piston system. It shoots ridiculously flat. I throw a suppressor on it and it's super fun. Going out to 100 yards with the VTAC board, just kind of seeing how you can change different angles, and height over bore isn't as much of a factor compared to it being piggybacked when you're inside 25, because you can just sight this thing in to where as long as it's straight up and down, you don't have to make any adjustments. It's just right on target. I've got this trigger that's just stupid lightweight. It's great for a little varmint rifle like this, a little homestead defense, so I can take that shot without hitting any of the chicks. And last but not least, we've got a 10.5-inch Geisley Super Duty. This is kind of my science gun. I've got a light and laser that I'm testing out on it. I've got an Atrius 3-position FRT in it right now, and I still haven't even tested that out yet. This is just an $80 LEO trade-in. It's an Aimpoint Comp M2 that I got super cheap, and we're gonna see if it holds zero if I mag dump through this thing with it, and that's kind of how I'll judge it. Now, the riser situation, just kind of ignore that right now. I know the risers will hold zero at least. It's a Unity, and I think that's like a 30mm Vortex or something. But anyway, we've got it where it's comfortable and I can shoot it. Another thing is this Law Tactical folding adapter. Yes, I get it. You want your AR-15 to fold, right? And now it's more tactical, right? Now you can put it in a backpack, in my truck, all kinds of stuff. The gun doesn't shoot when it's folded. Okay, so if you want a foldy gun, go get a SIG MCX or an AK or like a million other options that are out there where they're designed to shoot when they're folded. The AR-15 platform is not a foldable platform. It runs on a buffer system. So these are kind of dumb in my opinion. However, I've got a small little range bag and I do fold it up to throw in there so I can take my FRT, shorty and just mag dump it trash with my friends. There's something therapeutic about that. There's nothing wrong with it and you should embrace it. So I have a designated build that I've done super safeties out of it. Now I've got the Atrius 3 position. This is a Geisley Super Duty. It's not even gonna feel it. This thing could just eat through whatever I throw in this. So that's why, if I wanna test how something behaves under full auto fire, I'm gonna throw it in this Geisley Super Duty with the short barrel, so I'm getting the maximum bang and concussiveness the whole bit. And it's a great way to test parts, and I've been doing it for years that way. So yeah, we're gonna keep rocking this thing and having fun with it, and but we're not defending the house with it. You see, there's different applications. I would save the science gun for like one of the last ones, right up there with the pistol caliber carbine. It's not a huge priority. And then you saw what I defend my house with. That's my opinion. And there are a million guys with different opinions. But if you're on this video, chances are you talk to me in person or at a match, or you're a friend of mine and you're like, man, what do you think about ARs? What should I get? We'll get into all the brands and everything in a very soon video. However, the setup and the general idea of what you want, it's pretty cut and dry. Get a red dot that's reliable. You don't need a giant EOTech, honestly, to defend your house. And in fact, those circle dot reticles, it's a little bit too busy when you're inside. Just a single dot. Holosun is like the baseline. That's like where you want to start, and I don't even run their optics. I like Aimpoint, Trijicon, and EOTech, just because they're reliable and I never have to question them. Everything's got its applications. All that being said, I hope you found this video somewhat useful, kind of give you a walkthrough of different types of ARs that are out there. I don't want to see you guys putting, an EOTech with a magnifier on a 10.5-inch pistol with no suppressor and running that for your home defense gun. That's not what you need. But when you do get a suppressor, and let's say you live on some acreage, yeah, that might be a realistic setup for you. And one last thing, if you plan on defending your house from indoors with a rifle caliber, then you need to train and get professional advice beforehand, right? So we don't want to get in a gunfight with an intruder before we train and stuff. You have to know what's beyond the target. How does 5.56 behave when it hits drywall and studs? All of that are factors, especially if you've got family all in rooms around you. That is a huge factor. I hope you found this segment useful. I could go on for hours and hours and hours about AR-15s alone, but hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of what's out there, the different gas systems that kind of separate the different variations, right? And then how exactly I set them up and how I recommend to set them up. And again, I'm just copying off of the Smart Kids paper. I don't have any kind of special forces, some kind of fancy resume to back up all my opinions with. I'm here just as a normal dad pursuing a high caliber, a high tier. That's what I want to do. That's not where I'm at by any means. I am viciously mid-tier. You know what I mean? If there's 100 shooters at a match, I'm in 50th place or within 5 every time. So I'm right in the middle as far as performance. As far as knowledge, that's debatable. But I have been nerding out on this stuff for about a decade and keeping up with what's out there, what's available, and how the doctrine changes based on the threat. The guys that were in Fallujah or Desert Storm, they had a whole different doctrine that they were taught in combat, for medical, for just about everything. Their kit setup, it was all different. Now we've got an entire new doctrine. We're learning more and more every year. The doctrine changes just like building code changes. There's guys that have been building decks for 30 years and they've been building them wrong since 2015 when they changed the codes of the beams underneath, how you can't run carriage bolts just all the way through and a beam to the side of a post, you got to notch it. I could go on for hours about building too. I'm kind of a nerd, honestly. That's really all I really am. But hopefully this gets you a good starting base to go from, and then hopefully the next video will help you understand why we go with specific optics and specific brands and put different optics into different applications based on our own personal lives. I'm glad you're here because that means you're trying to do better. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. When I'm out here going to all these classes and paying people for their knowledge and paying for the experience, I want to do that so that I can efficiently pass it on to the people that I love. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.